We've got a friend for today's episode of ciorcal.conversations. And today's episode is actually about something that dogs are very good at, which is sleeping. If you're struggling with your sleep at the moment, I'm going to offer some reasons why and then also work through how you can fix it, including a breath practice at the end to support better quality sleep. I'm going to start by painting the picture, and this is something that used to happen for me so commonly that I'd feel tired in the evenings and I'd know that I'm ready to sleep. But when I get to bed, I put my head down on the pillow, and next thing, even though my body's really tired, my mind starts racing. And then the negative self-talk starts to come in. Why can't I sleep? I have a busy day tomorrow, I'm going to be tired. The next thing, you're there 3-4 hours and you can't sleep. It's a horrible place to be, and I really empathize with people who struggle with that because I was there myself for quite a while. And the picture I want to start to paint for you here is how we look at sleep, because when you start to look at sleep through the lens of safety, nervous system safety, it helps you to understand why you can't fall asleep. When you put your head down on that pillow, if you're in a rested, grounded, safe state, you will be able to fall asleep. But if your system perceives that there's something still happening, or that you're in danger, or you're still stimulated, you're going to find it very difficult to switch off, which is what you need to sleep deeply and sleep for a long period of time. We're going to jump in a little bit to the science around that in a couple of minutes. But at this moment, I want to really get that point across, that sleep is something that happens when your body feels safe enough to rest, which is an easier question to answer than why can't I sleep? If I asked you the question, what makes you feel safe? The answers you probably give is a relaxing environment, a comfy bed, time away from screens. There's loads of different things that we can tap into to create safety, and that's really important in the context of sleep. Matthew Walker, who's one of the world's leading experts in sleep, and he's someone I've been taking information from for years now, sums it up really nicely. He says that sleep isn't an on and off switch, it's a process. And that process doesn't actually start when we're sleeping. The first pillar of improving the quality of your sleep actually starts during the day. If we think about when you first open your eyes, that's typically where I'll start when I'm working with people around sleep. Daily regulation is your start point. And if we think about where that begins, once you open your eyes, getting 5 to 10 minutes of sunlight or even just daylight is the best way to regulate your state first thing in the morning. We'll touch on why in a couple of minutes, but that's where it begins, getting some light into your eyes. From there, if we think about what helps to regulate throughout the day, I've touched on this in the previous podcast around dealing with stress, because on a spectrum, we've stress here, regulation here. We want to work around regulation. The breath is the quickest way to regulation. So slowing down your exhale, breathing slowly, different breath practices that we can bring in. Movement is so important to use up the energy that gets stuck in our bodies throughout the day. Time in nature is also incredibly grounding and soothing for the nervous system. Co-regulating around others, being in connection with people who allow you to feel fully seen, who you feel comfortable around. These are all great ways to regulate throughout the day that help you to come at sleep from a regulated place. So it's making that connection between what you do throughout the day influencing the quality of your sleep. Also nutritionally, it's very important that one, you're fueling yourself with good quality foods, single ingredient foods that nourish your body, and then creating a little bit of space prior to sleeping, because if your body is still digesting food, it won't fully switch off. So that's the first pillar, is daily regulation, and that feeds into the second pillar, which is around your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is your body's internal clock. It's running 24 hours a day, and it's in charge of a couple of different things. It regulates sleep timing, it runs hormonal production around sleep, it regulates your body temperature and also your energy levels as well. It's a really important piece in the context of your sleep. Your sleep hormone is melatonin and your wake hormone is cortisol. The most important factor around your circadian rhythm is, as I mentioned earlier, light. The circadian system runs off light primarily, so getting light in the morning but also reducing light in the evening, and that's important in the context of those two hormones that I mentioned. If we're exposed to a lot of light late in the evening, it blocks the release of melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, that makes you feel tired and drop into sleep. If we don't get enough sunlight or daylight in the mornings, the amount of cortisol that's released is reduced, which means you'll have less energy in the mornings. Cortisol is a stress hormone, but ultimately, if we look at stress through the lens of energy, there's good stress and there's bad stress. The stress is overwhelming and there's stress that gives us energy to go and get stuff done throughout the day. The big piece around working with your circadian rhythm is consistency. We're not looking for perfection in terms of sleep timings, in terms of never having any light before bed, in terms of getting sunlight into your eyes straight away. But the more consistent you can be with those practices, 5 to 10 minutes of sunlight in the mornings, low light before bed, so avoiding screens completely in the hour to 2 hours before bed if possible, or using blue light blockers to block blue light, which is associated with the release of cortisol. So we want less of that in the evenings. Using red light if you can. So on my iPhone and my MacBook, I can turn on a setting in the accessibility section that turns the screen red, which red light is associated with the production of melatonin, so that's helpful at night. And then also going to bed and waking at similar times, particularly waking, because that's where the circadian rhythm starts, around your wake time. So if you can get up at the same time each morning or as close to it as possible, that's going to be really helpful for regulating your circadian rhythm. It will help with hormonal balances, so you'll have more cortisol in the mornings, more melatonin in the evenings, which will help with the quality of your sleep and also the quantity too, because you'll be likely to wake up less. So if we think about those as a hierarchy, just to bring that together, light is the primary driver. So we need to really make sure first thing in the mornings we're getting light in, minimizing light in the evenings. Second one is your wake time, so having that as consistent as possible, and sleep time too, but definitely the wake time. Third one, touched on it above, but reducing light at night, so low light in your sitting room, ideally avoiding screens if possible. Look, I'm as guilty as this for anyone. It is hard to do, but something that I found really helpful is charging my phone in the kitchen and having an alarm clock in my room, so that when I come upstairs I know it's a screen-free area. I read a book for 10 or 15 minutes. I have a low kind of red light in my room now that I find really helpful. And even just that one thing, leaving my phone downstairs, has made a huge difference to the quality and the quantity of my sleep. So that's number 3, reducing light at night. Next is that daytime regulation. So I touched on it as pillar 1. So making sure that your behavior during the day helps the quality of your sleep. Caffeine is also important to mention there as well. So caffeine has a half-life of around 5 to 7 hours, which means after 5 to 7 hours, 50% of the caffeine is still in your system. So if you have a coffee at 3, fast forward 7 hours from that, that's 10 p.m. 50% of the caffeine is still there. So that's an important one to be mindful of. Typically, no caffeine after 2 is a good piece of advice, which will definitely help with your sleep as well, because caffeine is a stimulant. It's going to keep you up later if you drink coffee. Even some teas, there's a lot of caffeine in them, so trying to stay away from those. Maybe going for something like a chamomile or a peppermint tea close to bed, which helps to soothe the nervous system. There's no caffeine in them. And then food timing as well. So ideally having your last meal around 2.5 hours before bed, so that your digestive system has time to allow the food to move through and let the body come to rest, so that it's fully ready for sleep. There isn't these internal processes happening. Same with water, around an hour before bed, and using the bathroom before you sleep is a great way to be ready for bed with no distractions. There's nothing happening in the body. That's our second pillar, so circadian rhythm and all of the different things that feed into that. The third pillar, which is one that I've been tuning into more over the last while, I found really helpful, is to wind down more intentionally. And what that means is essentially creating a bridge between daytime Owen and nighttime Owen. If we think about that Walker quote again, sleep isn't an on and off switch, it's a process. This is part of the process. I've kind of touched on a few of these already, but having a routine around sleep, or sleep hygiene, some people call it, is really helpful, because your nervous system picks up on these rhythms that you develop, like setting a timer that lets you know that 30 minutes after the timer, you're going to put your head down on the pillow. So the timer goes off, you know you have 30 minutes until you sleep. You might read a book, you might do a breath practice within those 30 minutes, and then you're falling asleep. The more consistent you can be with that, the more messages that get sent to the body being like, okay, you're ready to go to sleep now. So that's really helpful. Having the food timing your food the right way, timing your water intake the right way, using low lights in your sitting room, your bedroom, using the blue light blocker glasses if you have them, or changing the color of your phone screen. These are all ways to wind down with intention. Now, this isn't me telling you exactly what to do, but it is me suggesting you find ways that work for you. This isn't about like optimizing every part of your day. It's just about finding a couple of practices that you can lean on to help you sleep better. I touched on breath work earlier in the podcast. We're going to go through a 4-7-8 breath at the end of this podcast as a way to help downregulate your nervous system. And that's been a constant in my sleep routine. I don't even like the word routine, but just things that I do before bed. I don't do them all the time, but they are really helpful, particularly the breath work, because it's a very clear message that we're calming things down now. We're getting ready for rest. So that's the next one, is to wind down with intention and just creating that bridge between wake and sleep. The fourth pillar is your sleep environment. I bought a book last week around Feng Shui. A friend of mine We just got into a conversation around feng shui and around setting up your house so that things flow and how you feel in certain rooms. It's not something I've paid that much attention to before, but I bought a book about it last week and just found myself opening up the page around the bedroom, and it spoke a lot about sleep and how the quality of your environment, your sleep environment, has a big role to play in the quality of your sleep. For example, if your room is a really high temperature, if there's loads of light coming in from outside windows, if it's really cluttered, your body is going to pick up on that and it will decrease the quality of your sleep. You're more likely to wake up during the night, you're less likely to get restful sleep. So just having a think about what the lighting is like in your room. Is it quite a strong light, or is it a dim light? Dimmer switches are really helpful to bring down the light. I mentioned I bought red light a couple of weeks ago that I use now in my room, which I think is helpful. Typically room temperature around 16 to 19 degrees is a good temperature. Now, I don't have a temperature gauge in my room, but I feel like my temperature is in and around that. Sometimes I put a blanket on the bed if I know the temperature is going to drop at night. But if you have a temperature gauge, 16 to 19 degrees, making sure your room is a clutter-free space, so keeping it nice and tidy. Again, I'm not telling you what to do here, but this is just best practice around sleep. It's something that I find really helpful. I used to be that person who had just stuff lying around my room, and who knows, it probably did affect the quality of my sleep. So I make an effort now to keep things in their place. And also, I used to be very bad for working in my room. When I was living in Australia, my desk was in my room, and it definitely affected the quality of my sleep because I couldn't switch from work mode into rest mode. So if you are working from your room, trying to work there as minimally as possible or not at all, so that when you step into your room, you know that it is a calm and relaxing space. Really important. And then the fifth pillar is something I like to call the compassionate sleeper. Most of us are likely to wake up at night at some point. I don't speak to many people who don't wake up at all. Personally, I tend to sleep straight through probably like 80% of the time because I've worked a lot on my sleep. But for those who do wake up during the night, it can be a very stressful experience because you wake up and you know that you have to be up in a couple of hours, you know there's a busy day coming, and you just can't get back to sleep. So the first thing we do is we start to give ourselves a hard time around it. We start to tell ourselves that we're not going to be well rested, that it's going to add to our stress, that if only we could sleep better. All of those thoughts are creating more stress in the body and are making you less likely to actually get back to sleep. So the first thing is to meet yourself with compassion in those moments. To just say, look, I've woken up again. It is what it is. I'm going to stay nice and calm. I'll fall asleep when I fall asleep. So that's the first thing. The second thing is bringing in a breath practice. The 4-7-8 breath is a way to down-regulate the nervous system. The way it does that is by extending the exhale. So it's 4 seconds in, it's a 7-second hold, again, another way to create calm in the body, and then an 8-second exhale. It can be done before bed to help down-regulate the nervous system, or you can use it when you wake up at night, just falling into that rhythm. 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. We're going to finish this podcast now with that practice because you can use this throughout the day if you want as well. But practicing it now might make you a little bit more likely to bring it to your pre-bed routine or even to implement it if you wake up during the night. So just taking the next couple of minutes to, like always, ground the feet, relax the shoulders, soften the jaw. You can close down the eyes if you like. And in your own time, falling into my rhythm, we're going to breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and breathe out for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In through the nose for 4, hold for 7, and out for 8. In for 4, hold for 7, and out for 8. In for 4, hold for 7, And out for 8. And just checking in on how you feel in your body after that. You should feel a little bit calmer. There might be a little bit more space between thoughts. That's a practice I give to any clients I work with who are struggling with their sleep, both prior to sleep and also if they wake up at night. You can find that practice linked below. It'll take you through a recording that you can listen to before bed. And if you have any questions around your sleep, feel free to reach out. A lot of my work is around regulation through the breath, but sleep is a huge pillar. And it's where we start with a lot of one-to-ones. So it's very important that if you are struggling a little bit with your sleep, that's where you begin, because it can have a massive crossover to the quality of your energy levels, which in turn will help your work, your relationships, your ability to exercise. Sleep is the foundation of all of those. So it's definitely worth taking a look at. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you on the next one.